In this episode, we talk about the formation of a popular government in Manipur after it was under president's rule for nearly a year. We also talk about a tragedy reported in Ghaziabad that has once again highlighted the importance of addressing mental health issues, especially with minors. But we begin today by talking about the ramifications of Uttarakhand's anti-conversion law. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. It was in 2018, a year after it came to power in Uttarakhand, that the BJP government enacted a law to curb forced religious conversions. This was the Uttarakhand Freedom of Religion Act, or UFRA.
And it stipulated a prison term of up to 5 years for anyone convicted of converting someone from one religion to another using coercion, incitement, allurement, or any other forced or fraudulent method.
That's the Indian Express's Aishwarya Raj, who reports on Uttarakhand for the paper.
So after it was introduced in 2018, it was tightened in 2022 and again in 2025. However, after the 2025 amendment, even though the bill was passed in the assembly, it was sent to the governor, but the governor returned it, citing some issues with the draft. So now it is on hold, but the recent amendments are quite stringent in the way that it has scaled up the jail terms from the initial 5 years to even life imprisonment.
Now, over the past 7 years, a number of people have been arrested under this law, and at least 5 cases have gone to full trial. But as per an investigation by the Indian Express, all 5 cases have ended in acquittals and failed to meet a basic legal test, that of evidence. To find out more about what official records obtained by the newspaper reveal, my colleague Shashank Bhargava speaks to Aishwarya in this segment.
Aishwarya, one of the things that this law has done is that it has expanded the definition of what counts as a conversion. And at the same time, it has also expanded the definition of who counts as a victim. So before we talk about the cases themselves, tell us in what way it has done that.
Yeah, so I think it's important to mention that, especially since we have gone through the FIRs, we see that there are specific victims who are repeatedly mentioned or who are repeatedly, called as victims, alleged victims. So according to the Act, especially in 2022, there were provisions increasing the jail terms for anyone who has been found guilty of converting a minor, a woman, an SC/ST person, or a person with disability. So under 2025 amendment, it has been scaled up to, from 5 to 14 years in jail and at least a fine of rupees 1 lakh. How it is relevant is when we see that the 5 people who have been acquitted, in this, 2 people are Christians. One of them is a Christian pastor, and he was having a ceremony, a prayer gathering at his house when a third party, an Antarashtriya Hindu Parishad outfit, barged in. They vandalized the place. They even alleged that mass conversion was happening from Hinduism to Christianity. And the alleged victims were from SC/ST community. So there is this allegation time and again that Christians are converting pastors, are converting Dalits in the hills to Christianity. So it is important, especially when we look at another case, and that is of a man who was accused of burning his birth charts and criticizing Hinduism and caste system on internet. And while the court acquitted him, citing lack of evidence, lack of digital evidence, the court also upheld the importance of right to religion. So I'll just quote what the court had said when he was being acquitted. This was in Tihri Gadwal in 2024 January. The court had said that every person is free to profess, practice and propagate any religion so long as in doing so they do not infringe upon the civil rights or any legal rights of another person. So this was a textbook case because it was important because the court itself, upheld the fundamental right which is enshrined in the Constitution. So under the ambit of the Act, these are the victims. Of course, anyone who has been converted, anyone found guilty of converting one person will be punished. But these specific victims or converting these people will invite stricter action.
Right. And when talking about the victims, the law says that they are those who have been fraudulently converted from one religion to another through coercion, allurement, or inducement. But tell us, when the court looked at these cases that we talked about, what did they find out?
So one of the reasons why the court has time and again said or acquitted people is that they have not found any coercion in the alleged conversions. And even in relationship, even when we are looking at cases where a man and a woman are involved, the court has noted that the alleged victim seems like they are likely in a consensual relationship with the accused. And one of the acquittals from Almoda, the woman was allegedly kidnapped and raped by a man of another community. He was a Muslim man and the woman was a Hindu. And the complaint was registered by the husband of the alleged victim. And later, while acquitting the man, the court had said that it was like a premeditated departure. The woman had packed her clothes, she wanted to leave, and it was a hearsay. There was no allurement, there was no coercion on the part of the accused and victim when the incident took place.
Right, and there are two things here. One is the charge of forced conversion, and the other is that of rape, for example, which can happen in any relationship regardless of whether it is interfaith or not. But what we find is that in such cases, things get even murky because of these additional charges. But also, Aishwarya, tell us, what does this law require an interfaith couple to do if they want to get married? And what happens if one of them wants to convert?
Yeah, so if one person wants to convert to another religion, they have to approach the DM, the district magistrate, well in advance. And the priest who is officiating should also give a declaration to the DM. And once the conversion is over, a declaration has to be submitted to the DM within 60 days of the ceremony saying that I have converted from this religion to another. And it should contain details of the person who's converting. So the DM will summon you and they'll check details, they'll see if there are any objections. And if you're not following these procedures, your conversion will be declared null and void. So Uttarakhand is infamous for, third-party complaints and these outfits hounding interfaith couples. We have also, the last year, we have seen multiple incidents where interfaith couples were attacked by third parties, by different outfits, Hindutva outfits. And these couples are applying for registering their marriages under the SMA, Special Marriages Act, and even then they face a lot of hurdles. So this mechanism to convert will just make it even more difficult for someone, to get married.
Right, these are a lot of hurdles for people in such relationships. But Aishwarya, let's focus on one of the cases that you write about, one of the 5 cases that led to an acquittal. This one involved Pastor Narendra Singh Bisht and his wife. In this case, the charges were made by the Antarashtriya Hindu Parishad. Members of this organization, they tore down posters with Bible verses, vandalized Bisht's house, assaulted the gathering there, and alleged mass conversions. So talk to us about this case and tell us what the pastor said about what happened after he was arrested.
Yeah, so after he was arrested, he was taken to the police station with his pregnant wife, and a 3-year-old daughter, and they had to spend the night there. He was arrested. He was in jail for 7 days, and then afterwards he had to move from that house to another house 15 kilometers away. So there is this fear among the people who are professing or practicing another religion, especially when they are, priests or pastors, especially when there are allegations already afloat. So that fear is very rampant. And other than that, when I was looking at the FIRs, there are complaints by the relatives of victims who are saying that their daughter has been kidnapped or raped by another person. And in 6 POCSO cases that we had among the 51 FIRs we looked at, 3 of them, the court said that this looked like a consensual relationship, but the girl is a minor, so this will attract POCSO sections. But again, these are relationships, these are where people are involved in a romantic relationship, but it just because, the fact that the man had to be from a different religion, the sections of UFRA are invoked.
And also, when we look at the complainants in these cases, do we see a pattern there?
Yeah, so 24 cases invoke sections of kidnapping or rape of women. But when we looked at what unfolded in the courts, we found that the court has remarked that in at least 11 of them, the couple appeared to be the alleged victim and the accused appeared to be in a relationship. And these are also substantiated by documents like a petition for under SMA, or even in one case there was this gazette notification saying that one of the accused, the main accused, was in fact trying to get converted from Islam to Hinduism to be with the woman. So what is made out in the complaints fall apart or collapse once it reaches the courts. And many of these complaints are by the relatives of the alleged victims. And in one of the acquittals, we find that the FIR contains a complaint by the brother of a victim saying that she was taken away, abducted by a man. But later in the court, he was acquitted because the victim said that she did not convert from Hinduism to Islam and she married the person as per the Hindu rituals. And the brother, who is apparently the complainant, said that he never made such claims. He never went to the police station with such a complaint. So there are concerns or questions regarding the claims made in the complaints because there is no corroboration when it comes to cross-examination in the courts.
And in the original act, only the aggrieved person or their parents, brother or sister could lodge a complaint. And in cases where they were unable to do so for some reason, a person related to them by blood, marriage or adoption could file a complaint. But after the law was amended in 2022, even third parties were allowed to file complaints.
Yeah, so we have 3 cases where third-party complaints are registered. So one of the cases that we have spoken about where the proceedings have been put a stay on by the High Court, it is on the complaint of VHP against a man, a Christian pastor, who is alleged of undertaking a mass conversion. So in that case, the pastor had claimed that this was on the complaint of a person who is not directly aggrieved by the allegations of conversion. So that was one of the reasons the court cited while placing a stay on the proceedings.
Right, and the other case I thought you could highlight was the one involving Aman Siddiqui. Talk about what happened to him.
Yeah, so Aman Siddiqui and a woman from Kumaon, from Uttarakhand, they were supposed to get married. It was an arranged marriage. And Aman's father happened to be a Muslim and mother Hindu. But the complainant, who is the brother of the woman who married him, said that accused Siddiqui of allegedly covering up his religion. So he accused Siddiqui of misrepresenting, that they were not aware of the fact that his father was Muslim. And although even after the marriage, what they had done was they had signed an affidavit saying that the woman would not convert. But despite this, the brother went ahead with the complaint and registered it. The FIR was registered at the police station and Aman was arrested. And he was denied bail in all courts, and he later appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court held that the married couple, they married with the consent of their parents. So the state cannot interfere in such a relationship. That is how he got the bail. And now what he has done is he has approached the High Court of Uttarakhand to quash the FIR registered in Udham Singh Nagar. So those proceedings are currently happening. But he spent 6 months in jail. And we also find that the counsel for Aman had stated in the Supreme Court that mother of the bride was aware of the fact that his family has such a background, and she had asked them not to mention it in different events and even the wedding invitation, which is why, implying that everyone was aware of the fact that they came from an interfaith household.
So when we look at these 5 acquittals, talk about what gaps do we find in the system? What kind of alarm bells do they raise?
So these cases collapse in the courts mainly because there is no corroboration to the claims made in the FIR. The court finds that there is more to what the claims say, that there is a consensual relationship, the civil liberties, these are people just having intimate relationships with people, so these are practically their civil liberties being curbed. And we have people worshipping or propagating their religion. Again, the court has also upheld that right of people. So these are the gaps. There is no evidence. One of the reasons is that evidence does not hold up in the court. In one of the acquittals, we have got the court pointing out that there was no proper digital evidence submitted by the prosecution, and the prosecution has failed to establish the coercion, the element of coercion or allurement in different incidents of conversion. So these are the gaps which have resulted in the acquittals in the past 7 years.
Also, Aishwarya, there are, of course, cases where couples seek protection from their parents, right? So that they can continue to be in relationships. What do we see happening in those cases?
So we have found at least 4 instances where the state acted against the interfaith couple seeking protection. So they approached the High Court for protection against families, against enmity or estranged families. And in 4 instances, the High Court has asked the state to look into the circumstances surrounding their wedding, because you cannot convert for marriage and you cannot convert without informing the DM about it. So in one of the cases, the father of the woman had asked the DM, asked the authorities to look into it. In other cases, the cops usually file an FIR on their complaint. And these are couples who are seeking protection, but at the end of the day, they are being acted against. They are called violators by the same authorities for getting into an interfaith relationship where they are running from their families, where they have converted. Since the UFRA also has provisions punishing these conversions, that they have to seek permission from the DM, it becomes easy for the state to go after them. So in one of the cases in Dehradun in 2020, this was, I think, one of the first cases registered under the Act. The High Court had asked the police to look into the circumstances surrounding their wedding, and the DM conducted a probe and an FIR was registered against the couple, the relatives, as well as the priest who officiated, because the priest is also supposed to inform the DM about the conversion. So that's how they take action in such cases.
And next, we focus on the political developments taking place in Manipur. After being under president's rule for nearly a year, Manipur, with the centre's support, has finally agreed to the formation of a popular government under the leadership of Yumnam Khemchand Singh, a former cabinet minister. President's rule was imposed in the state following a major breakdown in law and order, which was triggered by the outbreak of a violent ethnic conflict between the Meitei and the Kuki-Zo communities in May 2023. Singh has been a known critic of former Chief Minister N. Biren Singh, who was seen as biased in favor of Meiteis and as a result faced significant backlash from the community. So to learn what this latest development means for the ongoing conflict and the current situation on ground, we are joined by the Indian Express's Sukrita Baruah. Sukrita, for our listeners, can you explain what led to the political collapse and the imposition of president's rule for nearly a year?
So as we know that Manipur has been in a state of conflict since May 3rd, 2023, and the situation had been extremely volatile. We know that till date, the issue has not been resolved, and that the conflict has basically been between 2 major communities of the state, which are the Meiteis, who are based in Manipur Central Valley, which is also the power center of the state. Like the state capital, Imphal, is there. The state government operates out of the valley in Imphal. And the Kuki-Zo community, who live in various hill districts surrounding the valley. And there's another third major ethnic group in Manipur, who are the Nagas. So there had been this conflict between the Meiteis and the Nagas. It's still ongoing. And the government that was in place in Manipur at the time that the conflict broke out was led by N. Biren Singh. And in Manipur, the political power has always been dominated by Meiteis. They have 40 out of the 60, at least the valley has 40 out of 60 MLAs in the assembly. So when the conflict broke out, the overwhelming accusation has been that the state government under N. Biren Singh had behaved in a partisan manner and continued to behave in a partisan manner as the conflict unfolded. Because of the kind of divide that played out in the state, there's been a complete division between the Meiteis and the Kuki-Zos geographically, politically, socially. The Kuki-Zo MLAs, there are 10 Kuki-Zo MLAs in Manipur. They completely stopped engaging with the government and, they'd been pushing for a separate administration, a separate union territory. And, there'd been, non-state actors which became so powerful during the course of the conflict, underground groups, these other armed radical groups like the Arambai Bengal based in the valley, insurgent groups on both sides of the communitarian divide. And, there was a collapse of law and order. And as the government failed to contain the situation or adequately address it and continued to present it, come across as severely biased, there was also a collapse in public faith in the government system.
And if we go back a little, the then CM, N. Biren Singh, faced a lot of opposition on ground. Can you tell us about that? And what was the ultimate result of this dissatisfaction?
So Biren Singh had been facing opposition, obviously, from the political opposition, which is the Congress, and also from the Kukizo MLAs and all Kukizo groups across the spectrum. But what started happening over time, and very soon after the conflict began, was that the pressure started building from within his own house. So BJP MLAs, NDA MLAs who were from the valley, so Mete BJP MLAs, began putting pressure on the centre, asking for Biren Singh to be removed as the chief minister because they believed that there was a crisis in his leadership. And it is despite, so many other factors being in place, it was actually this pressure from his own MLAs, including his minister, Yumnam Khemchand Singh, who is now the new chief minister, by the way. He was the senior most leader who dissented against Biren Singh. So they built up pressure on the centre, and ultimately Biren Singh resigned on February 9th. And within days, on February 13th, president's rule was imposed in Manipur.
And we understand that around mid-2025, people in the state began demanding the restoration of an elected government in place of president's rule, right?
So when president's rule was imposed in Manipur, I think it was pretty widely welcomed. And obviously from the Kukizo side, because they had been demanding that president's rule be imposed because they accused the state government of being partisan. But also, in the valley, when I visited later, I felt that people did welcome it to some extent. There was a crackdown on the law and order situation. And, actually in Manipur, what we saw when the conflict was at its peak was a lot of fighting between both the sides, gunfights and explosions happening in places where Kukizo and Mete groups lived in close proximity to each other. But this had kind of died down a few months before president's rule, and during the course of president's rule, this had kind of almost stopped, despite a few stray incidents here and there of conflicts. However, within months of president's rule coming into place, one thing that was not happening, so there wasn't like active violence happening so much, but that reconciliation was not taking place, right? What multiple observers, stakeholders keep repeating is that, for a resolution of this conflict, leaders from both communities need to get on the table and there has to be a negotiation towards a political settlement of this issue. But that did not happen. So again, the MLAs who had basically pushed for Biren Singh to be removed began again building up pressure on the centre, demanding that a popular government be reinstated, which can take up this process of reconciliation. They alleged that not enough, there was an expectation that there would be great strides under president's rule, but that this was not materializing. And they claimed that as elected representatives, they were in the best position to do so. So within months, president's rule was imposed in February, and I think this pressure started mounting in May. So since then to now, there's been, sustained pressure from Mete and Naga NDA MLAs asking for a popular government to be brought back. However, what has been under question all along is, whether the Kukizo MLAs would participate in such a government, though the centre had been clear that a popular government would only be formed with, all these stakeholders involved, including the Kukizo MLAs.
And Sukrita, what is the current situation in Manipur like? And what are the two sides demanding now?
See, the key demand that has been raised by Kukizo groups, which includes the 10 MLAs, which includes the insurgent groups which are under suspension of operation agreement with the government. We'll call them the SU groups, who are, the civil society organizations in Kukizo areas they are kind of responsible for coming to a settlement with the government. What they have been pushing for, like I said earlier, is a separate union territory with a legislature for the parts of Manipur where they are in majority, which are largely the districts of, say, Kangpokpi, Churchanpur and Farzol. So this pressure and this demand is still very much alive. In fact, the civil society organizers like the Kukizo Council, which is based in Churchanpur district, has kind of condemned the efforts at forming a government and has kind of distanced itself from the MLAs who have joined in on the process of forming a popular government, saying that, we can't reconcile ourselves to this because the societal tension and the political question that is at the center of this, which is that of a separate administration, has not yet been resolved. At the same time, the social divide is very much alive to date. I mean, there is very little to no cross movement of, Metes towards Kukizo majority parts of the valley of Manipur or of Kukizo people into the Mete majority valley. So like I said, we're not seeing those gunfights per se anymore. But, the tensions are very much alive as we saw just a few days before this government formation process began, there was a chilling episode of violence where there had been a Mete man who had a Kukizo partner, and he had been living with her in Churchandpur district for about a month. And he was shot dead on camera by some unidentified armed people. And the text on that video said, "No peace, no popular government." So, tensions are very much alive.
And with the assembly elections due in a year, how do we see the situation unfolding there?
So the tenure of the current Manipur Assembly ends in 2027. So there's about a year left for this current government to function. And the new government has been formed with Khemchand as its helm. So Khemchand is a Mete leader. He is amongst the core leaders who had dissented against Biren Singh's leadership. But he was a part of Biren Singh's cabinet. But, the understanding is that he's seen as a more moderate leader, a more acceptable leader across community lines. And the center has, made an attempt at balance and outreach. So in a pretty, I think, unprecedented move, it has appointed, two people have taken oath as deputy CMs in the state. One of whom is Nemcha Kipgen. She is a Kukizo MLA. When in Biren Singh's cabinet, there were two Kukizo MLAs and she was one of them. So she has taken oath as a deputy chief minister. She's a BJP leader. And another is Losi Dikho. He is a Naga MLA. He's from a key NDA ally, the Naga People's Front. So, we have every, major ethnic group in the top 3 positions of power. So, there's some attempt at, trying to bridge these divides. So the key challenges, of course, now the challenge has only just begun. Biren Singh is gone. And now, how this new dispensation is going to work towards bridging the divides that have been in place. They have a year and we have to see how that's going to pan out.
And finally, we turn to a tragedy that struck a family in Ghaziabad this week. Early on Wednesday, 3 minor sisters died after jumping from the 9th floor of their residential building in Ghaziabad. Police suspect the incident is linked to excessive online gaming and consumption of a certain type of Korean content. According to the Ghaziabad police, the sisters, aged 12, 14 and 16, jumped from their 9th floor flat in Bharat City Township following a disagreement at home over their dependence on an online task-based game and Korean dramas. Residents told the Indian Express's Niharika Jha that they heard some loud noises at around 2 a.m., after which the girls were found lying near the building. They were taken to a nearby hospital where doctors declared them dead. Police said the girls had stopped attending school several years ago, spent most of their time on mobile phones, and lived under stressful conditions in a large family facing severe financial hardship. Officers told Niharika that the father, Chetan Kumar, was under a debt of around 2 crore. Kumar had married twice and the girls stayed in their rented flat with him and both wives and their 2 other siblings. Police said the girls allegedly jumped after their father took away their phones 3 days before and told them to stop watching Korean content and playing Korean games. On Tuesday night, after the rest of the family went to sleep, the sisters reportedly locked themselves inside their room before jumping from a window. An 8-page note recovered by police suggests the girls had planned the act. According to the officers, the note alleged that the sisters were beaten and threatened with marriage. This was unacceptable to them because they allegedly loved Koreans. A part of the note reads, quote, "Should we live in this world to be beaten by you? No, death would be better. At the very mention of marriage, we get tense. We like and love Koreans and we can never accept marriage with Indian men. Korean is our life. How do you even dare make us leave our life? You don't know how much we love them. Now you have seen the proof." Unquote. Chetan Kumar told the Indian Express that his daughters were deeply influenced by K-dramas and had dropped out of school 3 years ago. He said he had confiscated their phones days before the incident and deleted their YouTube channel months earlier, actions that had upset all 3 of them. This incident has once again shone a spotlight on the urgent need to address mental health issues among children and adolescents, particularly in the age group increasingly exposed to online content and digital isolation. Experts have repeatedly flagged the lack of accessible mental health support for minors, as well as the importance of early intervention, family counseling, and open communication to identify distress before it escalates into tragedy. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank, Bhargava, and me, Niharika, Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.